Back in my uni days, I took a class in Islamic history. And of course, conservatives will tell you that that's exactly what's wrong with American society today. People are taking classes in things like Islamic history that are not directly on point to becoming a good office drone and working in an office somewhere, making money for their corporate overlords. But I was reminded as I watched the news about what's going on in Iran of something that my Islamic history professor told us. There's a Bedouin saying, I against my brother, I and my brother against my neighbor, I, my brother, and my neighbor against the stranger. And it's impossible to look at what's going on in Iran right now without thinking about that. In the run-up to the United States bombing the holy hell out of Iran, we were told there are a lot of protests against the Iranian theocratic regime, which is true, and that it was getting to a point where the government was starting to look a little shaky, and the Ayatollah was actually considering bailing to Russia. And so the idea was that all we need to do is give it a push, and then the protesters will overwhelm the government, the theocracy will fall, and then I guess it will be, cupcakes and democracy for everybody. And clearly, that is not what happened. And the thing is, anybody who knows the history of that region can understand why. I against my brother, I and my brother against my neighbor, I, my brother, and my neighbor against the stranger. We managed to take all of these different factions and all of the protest movements in Iran and unite them against us, and pretty much guarantee that the Iranian regime is going to last for at least another generation. But I'm not actually here to talk about Iran. I'm actually here to talk about the difference between high trust societies and low trust societies. Now that saying, I against my brother, I and my brother against my neighbor, I, my brother, and my neighbor against the stranger, is absolutely characteristic of what sociologists call low trust societies. The difference between a low trust and a high trust society is that low trust societies generally have very little public faith in the institute of governance. They don't trust the government, they don't trust police or law enforcement, they don't trust the social convention, and so what you end up with is a society that is very tightly focused around the family, the tribe, and then the people outside of that tribe. So you get these societies where your loyalty is first to your family and second to your tribe, but you don't see a lot of loyalty to your entire society, your country, or even the concept that society has value. Now, a high trust society, on the other hand, is a society where the people generally believe in good governance. They believe that the government is a force for good. They believe that the government can solve problems. They believe that the edifice of police and law enforcement is generally effective and trustworthy. And when you look at low trust societies and high trust societies, you generally tend to see that low trust societies have a lot of corruption. They have a lot of bribery. They have very little faith in things like business contracts, so they don't believe that businesses will actually do what they say they will do, and nobody trusts anybody else. Whereas in a high trust society, you are free to start a business knowing that when you make a contract with your suppliers will actually hold up to that contract, knowing that if they don't, you have remedies in the courts and the legal system, knowing that if somebody attacks you, you can call the police and the police will take you seriously, and the police are not going to ask you for bribes before they investigate. So consistently, over and over again, we see that high trust societies are generally wealthier, more stable, more secure, and more prosperous than low trust societies. High trust societies just work better. Now, the United States is a high trust society that is in the process of becoming a low trust society. And this process actually happened during the Reagan administration. Reagan campaigned on slogans like, the government is not the solution, the government is the problem. Or the scariest phrase in the English language is, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Now, this is absolutely characteristic of the way low trust societies believe. And if you look at the decades since Reagan you discover that a group of people has realized that they can become very wealthy by promoting ideas and propaganda that nudge American society toward a low trust society. And this undermining of faith in government institutions, this undermining of faith in the law, this undermining in faith that society and civilization have value and that we are all better off when we work together, is becoming extremely common in the US today. And along with it, we see a dramatic rise in open, blatant corruption. We see people losing faith in basic social institutions, and we see a turning inward, a selfishness, a sort of a people saying that I only need to take care of mine. And if you are not part of my family or my particular tribe, then I don't care what happens to you. And the problem with this is that when you undermine the social and government institutions that make society work, society quits working. And there's an idea that is really common in some circles. It's called American exceptionalism. And it's this idea that the United States rightfully deserves its place as one of the world's superpowers and that we deserve to tell everybody else in the world what to do just because we're so great and we're so special. But the thing is, what conservatives call American exceptionalism is really just the consequence of a high trust society. We're not exceptional because there's a God somewhere that says that we are. We're exceptional because we built a society that functions. We built a society where you can go into business and you can trust that the people that you do business with will keep their word. And you can trust that if somebody doesn't keep their word, you can go to the courts and get remediation. And without this trust, society fundamentally fails. And it's weird to me to see people pushing this idea that we should become a low trust society because, I mean, do you want the Russian Federation? Because this is how you get the Russian Federation, right? I mean, low trust societies simply do not work as well as high trust societies. And it makes me wonder, what is their end game? Because, yeah, they're making a ton of money doing it right now. And you see a bunch of people getting really, really wealthy on spreading fear and dissent and the idea that the government is the enemy, which is always a little weird to see somebody saying you should vote for me for president because I think the government is the enemy and the government's always a problem. I mean, okay, if you think that the government is the problem, why do you want to be the head of it so badly? But aside from that, I really wonder what's the end game here? Because how are you going to keep all of those billions of dollars? How are you going to keep making more if the fundamental structure of the way that you do business and the assurances that you have that your contractors and that people who owe you money will give you what they say they will, if nobody trusts anybody?